I'm a fitness and outdoors TikToker with a decent following, but I'm not here to spout my own crap. I'm here because I get comments sometimes that say, "Tell us the worst things you've seen on the trails." Or, "Do trail guides have creepy stories?" Yeah, we do. And yes, I used to be a trail guide, but I don't do that anymore. So, at the request of my fans, here we go. 2 stories, both all too true. I won't be using names, but if you've hiked with me, you might recognize a couple of details. For context, I'm a fitness guy first. So the summer this first story happened, I was in great shape. I could move fast over rough ground, and it's probably the only reason I went back in when I probably shouldn't have. Let me explain the first story. It was a few summers ago. I was doing a standard half-day group hike where people book online and you get whoever you get. The day I had about 9 people, a couple of older couples, a bachelorette-ish group of women in their 30s who were lovely and asked good questions, 2 guys who were clearly there because their wives made them come, and this one young guy, college age, about 20 maybe 21, and he was there by himself. Solo bookings like that are not weird. I get them all the time. People want to be out in nature and don't have anybody to go with. Totally normal stuff. I love a solo guest. They usually listen more. But this kid was off from the jump. He didn't talk to anyone, fine, but every so often when the group spread out, he'd drift up next to me at the front and ask me something, but the questions were kind of off. How far can you get off this trail before no one can hear you? I gave him the normal answer. Stay on the trail, stick with the group. Kept it light. He nodded and dropped back. Later again, at the front. If someone got hurt back there, how long before you'd notice they were even gone? Head counts, that's my job. Again he nods and goes back. The one that stuck with me, he asked it real low when we were the only 2 within earshot. Do you ever lose people? Not have you ever lost someone, present tense, like a habit, like asking a baker if they burn the bread. I laughed it off, but it didn't land right. So I started doing head counts more often, every bend. Everything was fine. We hit the turn-on point at an overlook. Photos, snacks, geology spiel, I do another head count. Later, that's where the air changes. I didn't panic immediately. People wander off. You wait, you call, they come back. So I settled the group and walked back down the trail calling for him. No answer. I went further back to the last place I was sure I saw him. The slope section, trees off the downhill side. Nothing. That's when the real panic hits, but not about him. About me, the guide. Responsibility, headlines, investigation, reputation gone. So I made a decision. I gathered the group and led them out early, blamed a weather system that didn't exist. Sky was perfect. Nobody complained much. I got them all to their cars, friendly, normal, waved them off. Then I turned around and went back in alone. Exactly the kind of thing every safety video tells you not to do. Sun dropping, maybe 2 hours of light left. I moved fast. I got back to the slope section and stopped. This time I actually looked. About 40 feet off trail downhill, a backpack, propped neatly against a tree. That should have been reassuring. It was. Then I went down. Carefully, loose slope. I didn't want to become problem number 2. At the pack, 1 shoe. Just one. Now it's no longer lost hiker, it's something worse forming. I start calling his name, moving through brush, scanning down slope. Then I was under this big old tree with thick branches, couldn't see into it. Something hit me. Like a soaked cloth dropped from above. My brain didn't process it before my body reacted. I grabbed it off my head and looked at it. Skim. A human face. Still warm. I dropped it. I ran. The rest is noise. Car doors locked. shaking so hard I thought something in me was breaking. I called it in. Rangers, sheriff, everything. I told them the truth, including going back alone. That part didn't help my case, but there wasn't much of a case to fix. No charges, no blame. Their working theory, mountain lion. Cougar. One of those animals people forget exist, until they very much don't. He likely wandered off trail, left his pack, got ambushed, the cat dragged him into the tree. Cats cache kills, eat later, come back over days. What hit me was part of that. Still warm, because it had just dropped from above me. And while I was calling out, the thing that killed him was probably 10 feet overhead, watching. Rangers said I should consider myself extremely lucky I ran when I did. Which is another way of saying, you were standing under something that could have decided you were next. They closed the trail for a while. I didn't guide again for 2 months. But I will go back one day. But I went back. People always ask me that part first. Why? Because humans are strange creatures. We'll survive something horrifying, swear never again, spend months having nightmares about it, and then convince ourselves a return trip is somehow closure. The truth is simpler. I needed the trail to stop belonging to that day. For weeks afterward, every time I closed my eyes, I saw that face, not the way it actually looked. My brain was kind enough to blur the details after a while, but I remembered the feeling, the weight of it hitting me, the warmth. That's what stayed. I couldn't walk through a grocery store without looking up at ceiling rafters. Couldn't sit under trees. Couldn't hear a branch crack without my pulse jumping. My girlfriend tried to get me to talk about it. I didn't want to. How do you explain to someone that for 30 seconds you accidentally stepped into the food chain? That all the comforting lies we tell ourselves about being at the top disappear pretty fast when a predator is looking down at you from above and you're too stupid to notice. So I stayed away. 2 months. Then one morning I drove out there before sunrise. Not to guide. Just me. I parked, sat in my truck for almost 20 minutes, and nearly turned around 3 separate times. Eventually, I got out. The trail looked exactly the same. That's the thing nobody tells you. Places don't care. The overlook was still beautiful. The birds still sang. The trees still moved in the wind. Nature doesn't put up memorial plaques for your trauma. I made it maybe halfway before I started feeling better. Then I reached the slope. The slope and the trees. That cluster. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to throw up. I stood there staring for a long time. Nothing happened. No mountain lion. No hidden danger. Just trees. Eventually, I laughed at myself. Not because it was funny. Because I felt ridiculous. I was a grown man, standing 50 feet from a place I'd already survived, acting like the forest owed me an apology. So I kept walking. That should be the end of the story. Nice little lesson. Face your fears. Get closure. Roll credits. Life loves ruining tidy endings. Because about 20 minutes later, I found something. Not bones. Not blood. Nothing dramatic. A camera. One of those small action cameras people clip to backpacks. It was half buried under leaves beside the trail. The battery was dead and the casing was scratched to hell. I almost left it there. Then I remembered the missing kid. And I picked it up. Back at home, I charged it. Eventually, it turned on. There were dozens of clips. Most were exactly what you'd expect. Trail footage. Trees. Sky. Random nature shots. Then there was one final recording. The date matched the day he disappeared. The video started with him walking. Nothing unusual. The camera pointed ahead as he left the trail, just like the rangers suspected. I remember feeling angry watching it. The entire trail system had signs every few hundred yards. Stay on marked paths. Do not wander. Wildlife area. He ignored all of it. The footage continued. He walked downhill through the trees. Then stopped. The camera pointed at something I couldn't quite make out. A shape between the trunks. Maybe 50 yards away. I turned up the volume. Nothing. No voices. No sounds except wind. The kid stood there for almost a minute, watching. Then he started moving toward it. Slowly. The shape moved too. Just a little. At first, I thought it was the cougar. Made sense. Except it wasn't moving like an animal. It looked human. The footage got shaky as he walked faster. Then faster. Like he was trying to catch up. The figure slipped behind trees. Reappeared. Farther away. Always just visible. Always moving. Always staying ahead. I remember pausing the video. Rewinding. Watching again. Trying to convince myself I was imagining it. Could have been another hiker. Could have been bad resolution. Could have been anything. Then the figure turned. Just for a second. The camera caught enough detail to show clothing. A jacket. A hat. And a backpack. The exact same color as the one the kid was wearing. I sat there staring at my monitor. Because the figure ahead of him looked exactly like him. Same build, same clothes, same backpack, walking deeper into the trees. The recording continued another 30 seconds. The kids started jogging. The camera bounced. Branches snapped underfoot. The figure disappeared behind a stand of trees. The kid followed. Then the video abruptly ended. No attack. No scream. Nothing. Just black. I watched it maybe 20 times. Every rational explanation in the world makes more sense than what it looked like. A trick of perspective. Compression artifacts. A weird coincidence. Human brains are excellent at finding patterns that aren't there. I know that. I teach people to be rational outdoors. But even now, years later, I still remember the feeling that crawled into my stomach while watching it. Not because of what happened to him. We know what happened to him. The cougar happened to him. The rangers were almost certainly right. What bothered me was this. The last decision that kid ever made was to leave a safe trail and follow something into the woods. And whatever he thought he was chasing, he never caught it. I never showed that clip online. Never posted screenshots. Never turned it into content. Half because it felt wrong, half because the internet would immediately split into two camps. One group screaming that I'd captured proof of something supernatural. The other group explaining that I was an idiot who didn't understand camera compression. Both groups would somehow be equally exhausting. So I copied the file onto a hard drive and forgot about it. Or tried to. Years passed. I kept getting. Eventually, the nightmares faded. The story became something I only told after a few beers around a campfire. People always reacted the same way. Mountain lion attack. Human face. Dre. End of story. Nobody ever cared about the video as much as I did. which was probably healthy. Then one autumn afternoon, I got a message. No introduction. No greeting. Just, I think I know the guy from your story. I almost deleted it. Being online teaches you that strangers claim a lot of things. Instead, I replied. The guy told me he had gone to college with the victim. Not close friends. Just same dorm. Same classes. The sort of relationship where you recognize somebody's face but don't really know them. Then he said something that made me sit up. He asked if the victim had been acting strange before he disappeared. I asked what he meant. His response came back almost immediately. Did he ask weird questions? That got my attention. I asked him why. The answer took several minutes. When it finally arrived, it wasn't one message. It was several. Apparently, during the months before his death, the kid had developed a strange obsession. Not with hiking. Not with wildlife. Not with survival. With people who vanished. Missing persons. Unsolved disappearances. Stories of people who walked into wilderness areas and were never seen again. He spent hours reading about them. Talking about them. Writing about them. The guy told me most people assumed was some weird true crime phase. College kids get obsessed with strange things all the time. But then it got weirder. According to him, the victim started claiming there was a pattern. A connection. He believed many missing people weren't simply getting lost. He thought they were following something. I remember staring at that sentence. Following what? The guy's reply. That's the thing, he never really explained it. Apparently, whenever people pressed him, he'd get vague. He'd say things like, they always see it first. Or, they think it's someone they know. The hairs on my arms stood up. Because suddenly, I was remembering that video. The figure ahead on the trail. The one that looked like him. The guy continued. A few weeks before he died, the victim had apparently become convinced he'd eventually see it himself. Not maybe. Not someday. Eventually. Like it was inevitable. The message ended with, most of us thought he was joking. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I suddenly believed in ghosts. Not because I thought monsters were hiding in forests. Because I hate coincidences. And that was one hell of a coincidence. A kid spends months talking about people following something into the wilderness. Then dies after apparently following something into the wilderness. That's the kind of thing your brain chews on at 3 in the morning. Months later, I received another message. Different person. Different account. This one was even shorter. Just, did he tell you about the doubles? I sat staring at the screen. I hadn't mentioned the video to anyone. Not publicly. Not privately. Nobody should have known about the figure. I replied immediately. No answer. I waited days. Nothing. The account disappeared shortly afterward. Deleted. Gone. That's when I dug the video back out. For the first time in years. I watched it again. Frame by frame. Slowed down. Zoomed in. Trying to be logical. Trying to find something normal. The figure remained exactly what it had always been. A blurry shape. Nothing more. Nothing less. Not proof. Not evidence. Just enough detail to be unsettling. I finally shut the laptop. And that's when I noticed something I hadn't remembered. The timestamp. Not the date. The time. The video ended at 2:17 p.m. The ranger report I'd received years earlier estimated the mountain lion attack occurred around 2:30, meaning whatever was on that recording, whatever the kid was chasing, it happened less than 15 minutes before he died. 15 minutes. That's all. A quarter of an hour separating normal life from becoming a cautionary tale. Maybe he followed another hiker. Maybe he followed a trick of the light. Maybe he followed a shadow, and my brain has spent years building stories around random pixels. That's the explanation I prefer. It's clean. It's reasonable. It's sane. The problem is that every now and then, usually when I'm getting a group through quiet woods, I'll notice someone staring off the trail. Not stepping off, just looking, watching something between the trees. And for a second, before they turn back and rejoin the group, they always have the same expression. Recognition. Like they've spotted somebody they know. Every single time, I tell myself it's nothing. Because it probably is. But I still do more head counts than any guide you've ever met. And if somebody asks me how far you can get off the trail before nobody can hear you anymore, I don't laugh. I make sure they stay where I can see them. A few years after that, I started thinking maybe I was finally over it. No more checking tree branches every 30 seconds. No more waking up at 3 in the morning because a floorboard creaked. No more replaying that video. Life moved on. Then I got assigned a private tour. Just me and 3 clients. A father and his 2 adult daughters visiting from out of state. Nice people. Easy hike. The kind of group guides love because nobody's trying to prove anything. The trail wasn't even the same system as the first incident. Different county, different terrain, different everything. Which is why what happened bothered me so much. We were maybe 2 hours into the hike when one of the daughters stopped walking. Not suddenly. Just stopped. I noticed because the rest of us had taken another 20 yards before realizing she wasn't behind us anymore. I turned around. She was standing in the middle of the trail, staring into the woods. Not frightened. Not confused. Just focused. Like someone listening to a conversation. I walked back. Everything okay? She didn't answer right away. Then she blinked. Almost like she'd forgotten I was there. Sorry, she said, thought I saw someone. My stomach tightened. Another haiku. She frowned. I don't know. Then she laughed at herself. Actually, this is going to sound stupid. I was already wishing she'd stop talking. She pointed into the trees. I thought it was my sister. The other daughter was standing 10 feet behind me. I remember every word after that because of how cold I felt. Your sister. Yeah. She looked embarrassed. For a second, I thought she was standing over there. She pointed again. Nothing was there. Just a forest. Her father chuckled. Told you you've been staring at your phone too much. Everybody laughed. Including me. Because that's what normal people do. We explain things. We move on. The hike continued. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because she saw somebody. People see shapes in the woods all the time. Because she thought she saw her sister. Not a stranger. Not a random person. Someone she knew. Exactly the kind of thing the college kid had supposedly obsessed over. The kind of thing I kept telling myself was coincidence. The kind of thing coincidence was getting awfully comfortable repeating. By the end of the hike, I'd almost forgotten about it. Then we reached the parking lot. The father was loading gear into their SUV when one of the daughters walked over to me. The one who'd stopped. She lowered her voice. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." She glanced toward her family, then back at me. "Has anyone ever gone missing out here?" I felt my chest tighten. Every guide gets asked that eventually. Normally, it's no big deal. But after the day we'd had, different story. "A few over the years," I said carefully. "Why?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Probably nothing." I waited. Finally, she sighed. "When I thought I saw my sister." She swallowed. It wasn't actually my sister. The parking lot suddenly felt very quiet. "What do you mean?" She stared toward the trees. The face was hers. A pause. The body wasn't. I didn't say anything. Didn't know what to say. She gave a nervous laugh. "See, sounds crazy." Then she walked away before I could respond. I stood there watching their vehicle leave. And for the first time in years, I dug that old hard drive out again when I got home. I watched the video, frame by frame. The blurry figure, the impossible shape, the thing the kid followed. And for the first time, I noticed something I'd somehow missed before. Not because it wasn't there. Because I'd never looked beyond the figure itself. Near the end of the recording, just before the camera started bouncing as he ran, the figure turns slightly. Only for a fraction of a second. Just enough for the sunlight to hit its face. The image was terrible. Pixelated. Worthless. The sort of thing any reasonable person could dismiss. But sitting alone in the glow of my monitor, I felt that familiar chill crawl up my spine. Because the face wasn't clear. Not even close. Yet somehow, looking at it, I had the overwhelming feeling that I recognized it. Not the victim. Not someone I knew. May. I slammed the laptop shut so fast, I nearly broke it. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe my brain filling in gaps. Maybe years of hearing strange stories finally catching up with me. That's what I told myself. It's still what I tell myself. But I haven't watched the recording since. And these days, whenever I guide a group through the woods and somebody stops to stare into the trees, I don't immediately look where they're looking. I look at their face first, to see whether they're confused, curious, scared, or whether they're wearing the expression that frightens me most. Recognition. Recognition. Once you start noticing it, you can't stop. That's the problem. The brain is a pattern machine. It finds faces in clouds, messages in static, meaning in nonsense. Humans built entire religions, stock markets, and reality TV around that talent, so I kept telling myself that's all this was. Pattern recognition. Nothing more. Then came the winter trip. I almost didn't take it. The company was short-handed and a guide called in sick. The route was easy, popular, family-friendly. The kind of trail where the biggest danger is somebody wearing brand new hiking boots and discovering blisters exist. There were 12 people in the group. Everything normal. Until the head count. 12. Then 11. Then 12 again. I stopped walking. Counted again. 12. The missing person was back. I know that sounds stupid. People shift around. Groups bunch up. You lose track. But something about it bothered me. So I started paying attention. There was a woman near the rear of the group. Gray jacket. Dark hair. Nothing unusual. The problem was that every time I counted, I kept forgetting her face. Not literally. Just I'd look away and couldn't quite recall her features. You ever meet someone at a party and forget them 5 seconds later? Like that, only stronger. I eventually convinced myself I was tired. The hike continued. Another head count. 12. Then 13. I stopped again. Counted twice. 13. One extra. My stomach dropped. The group noticed. One of the dads laughed. Lose somebody. I forced a smile. Just making sure I don't. Everybody chuckled. I counted again. 12. Back to normal. By then, I was annoyed at myself. The whole thing was ridiculous. I was a grown man, being rattled by arithmetic. So I pushed it aside. Then we reached a clearing. And that's where things went wrong. Not horror movie wrong. Not blood and screaming. Something much quieter. The kind of thing that sticks. I turned to address the group. Standard guide stuff. Trail conditions. Wildlife. History. While I was talking, I noticed one of the kids wasn't listening. Little girl, maybe 10 years old. She was looking into the trees. I followed her gaze. Nothing there. See something? I asked. She nodded. Who's your friend? I smiled politely. My friend. She pointed. The lady. Cold. Instantly cold. I glanced around the group. Gray jacket woman. Nowhere. I looked again. Still nowhere. Maybe she'd wandered off. Maybe she was behind me. Maybe I'd simply missed her. The kid kept pointing. She's standing over there. Her mother looked embarrassed. Honey, there's nobody there. The little girl frowned. Yes, there is. Then she said something that has bothered me ever since. Why is she pretending to be you? The entire clearing went silent. Just for a second. A tiny second. Nobody knew what to do with that sentence. Kids say weird things. Everyone knows that. But nobody likes being on the receiving end. I laughed. Too quickly. That's a creepy thing to say. The girl looked genuinely confused. Nose. She pointed deeper into the woods. She looks like you. I felt every hair on my arms stand up. The mother apologized. The father told her to stop making up stories. The moment passed. People started moving again. Conversation resumed. Normal life returned. But I couldn't stop myself. I looked, just once, into the trees where she'd pointed. And for the briefest moment, I thought I saw someone standing between two trunks. Not clearly. Not enough to describe. Just a shape. Human-sized. Motionless. Then it was gone. Maybe it had never been there. That should have been the end of it. Instead, that night, I got home and did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old video. I watched it from beginning to end. Then again. Then frame by frame. And finally, I found something. Not in the figure. Not in the background. In the reflection. For less than half a second, while the victim was crossing a shallow stream, the camera caught a reflection in the water. His face, the trail, the trees, and someone walking behind him. Not close, maybe 30 feet back. The victim never reacts, never turns around, never acknowledges them. But they're there. A second figure. Following. The reflection was too distorted to identify, too brief to prove anything. Exactly the kind of evidence that means nothing. And yet, I remembered something the college friend had told me years earlier. They always see it first. Naughty, it follows them. Naughty, it hunts them. It sees them. They see it. Then they follow. I sat there until nearly sunrise staring at that frozen frame, trying to decide whether I was uncovering a mystery or becoming the same kind of person the victim had been. The kind who starts connecting dots that don't belong together. The kind who goes looking for answers. The kind who leaves the trail. And that realization scared me more than anything I'd seen in the woods, because for the first time I understood why he might have followed it. Not because he was stupid, not because he was reckless, because once something gets into your head, you start wanting to see it for yourself. That realization sat with me for months, maybe longer. I stopped talking about the story entirely, stopped answering questions online, stopped reading comments. If someone brought up creepy experiences on the trail, I'd steer the conversation somewhere else. Bear encounters, flash floods, people getting lost, normal dangers, the kind you can point to on a map, the kind that don't follow you home. For a while, it worked. Then I got an envelope. No return address. No note inside. Just a photograph. An actual printed photograph. That alone was strange enough. Nobody sends photos anymore. Humans will launch satellites into orbit, but apparently decide that texting a picture isn't dramatic enough when they want to make someone uncomfortable. The photograph showed a trail. Not one I recognized. The image quality was poor. Late afternoon. Long shadows. Trees on both sides. At first I thought it was blank. Then I noticed the person, standing far down the path, barely visible. The photo had been folded, so a crease ran right through the figure. But something about it bothered me. I flipped it over. One sentence written in black ink. You counted 12. That was it. Nothing else. No names. No explanation. Just those 3 words. I wish I could tell you I immediately called the police. I didn't. What exactly was I supposed to report? Hello, officer. Someone mailed me a picture of a hiking trail, and now my feelings are upset. So I put it in a drawer for 3 days. Then I took it back out, because curiosity is a disease. The photograph looked ordinary. The sentence did not. You counted 12. Naughty. There were 12. Naughty. I counted 12. You counted 12. Like whoever sent it knew. Like they had been there. I started digging. Not online. Not publicly. Quietly. The kind of research people do when they don't want anyone asking why. I went through old trip reports, attendance logs, guide records, years of paperwork, thousands of names. Eventually, I found the winter hike, the one with the little girls, the one where my counts kept changing. 12 hikers. Exactly 12. No gray-jacketed woman. Not on the booking list. Not in the liability forms. Not anywhere. I checked twice. Then 3 times. Nothing. I even tracked down photos some of the families had posted online afterward. Group shots. Trail selfies. Pictures at the parking lot. 12 people. Always 12. No extra woman. No stranger. Nobody matching what I remembered. And maybe that should have reassured me. Memory is unreliable. People misremember details constantly. That's science. That's normal. The problem was that I remembered speaking to her. Not Murnchy. Just a couple of casual comments during the hike. Weather. Trail conditions. Nothing important. But I remembered. Or thought I did. The human brain is perfectly capable of manufacturing confidence out of thin air, which would have been a comforting explanation if not for what happened next. About 2 weeks later, I received another envelope. Same handwriting. Same lack of return address. Inside was another photograph. This one nearly made me drop it. It was me, standing at the overlook from the very first story. The same overlook where the college kid disappeared. The picture had been taken from the tree line, from off the trail. I was facing away from the camera. No way to know I was being photographed. On the back, you looked too. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after that. The thing about fear is that it evolves. At first, you're afraid of the monster. Then you're afraid there isn't a monster. Then you're afraid somebody wants you to think there is. And honestly, that third option is usually the worst one. Because monsters are simple. People are creative. I finally went to the police. They took the photos, asked questions, did their job. But there wasn't much to work with. No fingerprints. No useful DNA. No cameras covering the mailbox. Nothing. Weeks passed. Then months. No more envelopes. Life started settling down again. Until the phone call. It came from a number I didn't recognize. An older man's. Soft-spoken. Nervous. He said he'd gotten my number from someone in the outdoor community. Then he asked a question. Are you the guides? I almost hung up. Instead, I said yes. The silence that followed lasted so long I thought we disconnected. Then he spoke. My son disappeared 11 years ago. I didn't say anything. The man continued. He vanished during a day hike. A pause. Before he left, he kept talking about seeing someone. Another pause. Someone who looked like him. The room suddenly felt very small. The man wasn't looking for answers. You could hear that immediately. He'd spent 11 years looking. 11 years is enough time for hope to wear itself into exhaustion. He just wanted to know one thing. Whether I'd ever heard anything similar. I thought about lying. Telling him no. Letting him keep whatever peace he'd managed to build. Instead, I told him the truth. Or at least the version of truth I had. When I finished, he was quiet. Then he thanked me. Not because I'd helped. Because I'd confirmed something. Before hanging up, he said one last thing. Something I still think about. My son used to say, it never calls from the woods. I waited. The man took a shaky breath. He said it always starts somewhere familiar. Then the line went dead. And for the first time since all of this began, I found myself wondering whether the trail had ever really been the point at all. The trouble with a sentence like that is it settles into your brain and starts paying rent. It always starts somewhere familiar. I tried to ignore it. For a while, I succeeded. Work, bills, grocery shopping, laundry, the glamorous adventures of adulthood. Humanity spends centuries dreaming of greatness, and then ends up arguing with a washing machine because it made a weird noise. Normal life has a way of dulling sharp thoughts. Until one evening, I came home and found my dog staring at the hallway. I had a rescue mutt back, then named Cooper. Good doggy. Smart enough to know when dinner was late. Smart enough to know squirrels were agents of chaos. Not smart enough to stop eating things he found in parking lots. He was sitting at the end of the hallway, completely motionless. Watching. I called his name. Nothing. Called again. Nothing. That got my attention. Usually the word food could pull his soul back from another dimension. I walked over. Cooper. His ears twitched. Still staring. I followed his gaze. The hallway was empty. The dog slowly stood. The fur along his back lifted. Then he backed away. Not ran. Backed away. Like he didn't want to turn around. Every instinct in me suddenly hated the house. The hallway remained empty. Just a hallway. A completely ordinary hallway. Eventually, Cooper relaxed. A few minutes later, he was back to being a dog. The moment passed. Except it didn't. Because later that night, while brushing my teeth, I remembered something. The old man's words. It never starts in the woods. It starts somewhere familiar. I slept badly. The next morning, I laughed at myself. Dogs do weird things. Houses make noises. People get paranoid. End of story. Then I found the photograph. Not in my mailbox. Not on my porch. On my refrigerator. Held in place by a magnet. A photograph I had never seen before. The picture showed my kitchen. My actual kitchen. Taken through the back window. At night. The angle was impossible to mistake. Whoever took it had been standing in my yard. Looking in. Watching. On the back. Closer. That was the moment everything changed. Not because of ghosts. Not because of doubles. Because somebody had been outside my house. A real person. A breathing person. Suddenly the mystery became practical. Logs. Security cameras. Motion lights. Police reports. The tangible stuff. The stuff that exists in reality. I installed cameras everywhere. Front yard. Backyard. Driveway. Every entrance. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then one morning, an alert popped up on my phones. Motion detected. 2:14 a.m. Backyard. My stomach dropped. I opened the footage. The camera showed the fence. The grass. The back door. Then movement. A person. Standing perfectly still near the tree line. Too far away for details. Just a silhouette. Watching the house. I skipped ahead. Still there. Another minute. Still there. 5 minutes. Still there. 10. 15. The figure never moved. Never approached. Never left. Just stood there. Watching. Then at exactly 2:31 a.m., the image glitched. 1 second of static. When the picture returned, the yard was empty. Gone. No walking away. No running. No visible exit. Just gone. I rewound it 6 times. Same result. Static. Empty yard. A camera error. Had to be. Technology fails all the time. That's what I told myself. Then I checked the second camera. Different angle. Same timestamp. Same static. Same disappearance. I checked the third camera. Nothing. No figure at all. The spot where the person should have been was simply empty the entire night. No intruder. No silhouette. Nothing. 3 cameras. 3 different stories. I didn't know what to do with that. So I did what everyone does when they're frightened and exhausted. I made coffee. Humans have decided caffeine is the appropriate response to existential uncertainty. Remarkable species. While drinking it, I reviewed the footage one more time, frame by frame. And that's when I noticed something. Not the figure. The window. My kitchen window. The reflection. For a fraction of a second before the static, there was someone standing inside the house, behind the glass, behind the camera angles, watching the figure outside. The image was blurry, distorted, impossible to identify, but I knew exactly where that reflection had been standing, because it was the spot at the end of the hallway, the place where Cooper had frozen, the place he'd refused to approach. I shut the laptop, walked through every room, checked every lock, every closet, every inch of the house. Nothing. No intruder. No evidence. No explanation. Just an empty home and a dog that refused to go near the hallway for the next 3 days. And for the first time since the trail incident, I seriously considered deleting every file, burning every photograph, and walking away from the whole thing. Because the deeper I dug, the less it felt like I was investigating something. It felt like something was patiently waiting for me to notice it. And that distinction terrified me. I didn't burn the files. I should have. That's the sensible ending. Delete everything, move on, get a hobby, learn woodworking, start collecting stamps, anything other than spending another minute chasing whatever this was. Instead, I kept digging. Because curiosity doesn't care whether an answer improves your life. A week after the camera incident, I took all the photographs, reports, screenshots, and notes I'd accumulated over the years and spread them across my dining room table. The college kid, the video, the old man's son, the little girl, the envelopes, the figure in the yard. Every road seemed to loop back on itself. No names, no organization, no cult, no pattern I could prove, just fragments. Then I noticed something I should have caught years earlier. The dates, not the years, the days. Most of the incidents clustered around the same stretch of the calendar. Late October through early December. I nearly laughed. My first thought was that I had officially become one of those conspiracy board people. The kind who covers a wall with string and newspaper clippings until friends stop inviting them to parties. Still, I checked. Again and again. The pattern held. Not perfectly, but enough to bother me. And the current date, mid-November, right in the middle of it. That night I got another call. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. Silencer. Then breathing. Slow. Steady. Not distorted. Not supernatural. Just someone listening. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I answered. This time a voice spoke. A woman's voice. Calm. Almost gentle. Have you figured it out yet? Every muscle in my body locked. Who is this? No answer. Just a soft chuckle. Then, you're looking in the wrong direction. Click. Call ended. I stared at the phone for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done before. I stopped asking what. I started asking who. Because every explanation I'd considered involved some force, some mystery, some impossible thing lurking in the background. But people had mailed the photographs. People had made the calls. People had known details they shouldn't know. Somebody was behind this. Somebody real. That realization felt like a life raft. Terrifying, yes, but solid, human, understandable. I spent the next month chasing that possibility. Phone records, postal routes, public databases, everything I could legally access. Eventually, I found something. A name, not a full answer, just a name that appeared near multiple disappearances. Not as a suspect, not as a victim, a witness, always a witness. Different states, different years, different circumstances. Same name, a woman's. I won't use her real name. Partly because I never learned enough to accuse her of anything. Partly because I'm not convinced she even knew what role she played. But I found her. Or thought I did. She lived 3 states away. Retired. Ordinary life. No criminal record. No strange history. Nothing. I almost dropped the whole thing right there. Then I saw the photograph on her social media profile. My stomach turned. Because I recognized her. Not from real life. From the trail. The gray jacket woman. The one who supposedly wasn't there. The one nobody else remembered. The one the little girl had pointed at. I stared at the screen for nearly an hour. Then I did something monumentally stupid. I drove there. 12 hours. 1 motel. Too much gas station coffee. A decision I spent the entire trip regretting. By the time I reached the town, I felt ridiculous. What was I even going to do? Knock on her door. Hello, excuse me. I think you may be connected to a decade-long chain of impossible events. People get arrested for less reasonable introductions. So I sat across the street instead. Watching. Nothing happened. Normal house. Normal neighborhood. Normal life. Children riding bicycles. Dogs barking. Mail being delivered. The woman eventually stepped outside. Older than I expected. Gray hair. Garden gloves. She spent 20 minutes trimming flowers. Then she looked directly at me. Across the street. Through my windshield. And smiled. Not surprised. Not curious. Like she'd been expecting me. I should have left. Instead, I got out of the truck. Walked across the road. The woman waited. When I reached her yard, she spoke first. You took your time. The words hit me like a punch. I didn't know this woman. She definitely knew me. Do I know you? She laughed softly. No. Then she looked past me toward the road. You saw one, didn't you? Every instinct, I had screamed to turn around. Instead, I nodded. The woman's smile faded. For the first time, she looked genuinely sad. And then she said the last thing I expected. She said, "Then you're already too late." And before I could ask what she meant, a car horn exploded behind me. Loud. Closing. I turned instinctively. Just for a second. 1 second. When I looked back, the woman was gone. Not running. Not walking away. Gone. The front yard was empty. The garden gloves lay on the ground. The front door was closed, and every curtain in the house had been pulled shut. I stood there frozen, because I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The woman had never moved fast enough to disappear, which meant either I had just experienced something impossible, or I had finally become exactly the kind of person I'd spent years trying not to be. The kind who couldn't trust what they were seeing anymore.